Hey everyone. Hi everyone. Good evening. Good evening. If you'd mind taking a seat and calming a bit down, we'll start in a few seconds. Welcome to today's QA crew talk, and this time we'll be talking about QA. We'll be talking about accessibility, which is a very important topic to every app. And we have 4 great guests prepared for this evening. It's Damian and Jáchym from Applifting, and Martin from STRV, and Honza from FTMO. And how will we do it today? So first, there'll be talk by Damian, then there will be talk by Jáchym, which both will be talking about accessibility, one from the QA standpoint and the other one from the product standpoint. And then we'll have a panel discussion. I have some questions prepared, but you'll be more than welcome to join in and ask about anything interesting. So if you are all ready, let's invite Damian to the stage, and let's go. Damian, the stage is yours.
It's okay? Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Damian, and currently I'm at role QA lead here at Applifting, and today I want to talk a bit more about European Accessibility Act. My talk have 3 parts. First one gonna be the legal one, the second one VCAG, and the third one it's gonna be how to start. Do anyone heard something about accessibility? Or maybe particularly Accessibility Act, the law? Yes? No? Okay. Yeah, there is my colleague, she has the, like, I forced her to do a presentation, you know, so yeah, she know about it something. So first, let's look on some dates. First date it's 2019 when European Union published the directive about the accessibility, and every country in European Union needs to implement into their law. It was happened also in Czech law, and last year Czech law was published about the accessibility, and it was like pretty copy-paste. I read both the directive and also the Czech law, and it's like really like they took some parts from it, let's say. So it's good to read both, but you will have this feeling. I already read it. No, I don't know. So, and next year, the Czech law will come into force. So until this date, you will need to prepare yourself for this law. So now you can look on a list of the products and services which the law is covered. You can see there is like a lot of things, and it will cover almost all mobile and the web application. The only application which is excluded from this this law, it's application just with some piece of information which you will not maintain. So if you will maintain somehow after the day when the law is come into force, like next year, you will have also think about the accessibility. But if you will just let it live, the website, you don't need to do anything. But there shouldn't be like any feature like login or something else, just the informations. Also, there is some exceptions with size of the companies. If you are like a micro company, that means you have just up to 10 employees and the annual turnover less than 2 million Czech crowns. You also like free to do it what you want, but above these two things, you have to do like everything or almost everything. Actually, the European directive says like there is some exceptions for small and medium businesses, but the guy who copy-pasted the directive, he forgot this part, so it's interesting. But Czech law also like cover some exceptions for those, but they are not talking like there is possibility to do so those exceptions. So it's interesting, let's say. So how will be like a reaction of the IT industry? So it's mostly like also covered by designers, so they will be a bit panic, you know. Developers gonna be like they have to do the job, right? But QA, it's clear. Like we are always prepared, right? I have also the slide with management. You need to be just still focused, you know. I hope that will be quick. So Czech law, because the directive from European Union, it's like general, you know, but Czech law like also speak about the penalties, and the penalties here it's from 1 million to 10 million Czech crowns. Yeah, and the authority who will be like check or validate your website gonna be Czech Trade Inspection, but there is 8 exceptions, right? It's something like if you are operators, so you will be authorized by Czech Telecommunication Office, or or stuff like that. You know, there's like together like 9 authorities who will be like in charge. So they will probably don't know which hand doing which audit. So it will be, I think, crazy. And also, if you are with your application abroad, so you have some customers in Germany, you have some customers in Austria, France, you also need to look on their law, because there probably will be also some penalties, but just in euros. So that will be maybe just the only change. Yeah. Maybe after the presentation, you will come to your management and say, hey, there's the penalty up to 10 million. So how what will management ask you for, you know? It's always the minimum. And that's the question, what's the minimum, you know, here? And the answer, it's quite easy. It's VCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Those guidelines have like 3 levels, A, 2A, and 3A. For the fulfill the criteria of the law, you will need to fulfill the level 2As, right? The VCAG, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, I hope you get it from the previous slide, stands on 4 principles. First is perceivable. It's the information for the guy or anyone who came to your website. It can't be visible, can be invisible to all of your senses. So if you can see, you should be able to hear the information. Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to implement like voice recording, but you need to have like your website accessible in the way they have some technological agents. They can read the text. Yeah. The second one, it's operable. It means the interface cannot require interaction that the user can't perform. Understandable, they have to take the message or understand the web, and robust as technology and user agents grow, so it needs to be still maintained by all of those devices. VCAG have also this map. It's created by Intopia. And in the end of my presentation, I have some QR code with some sources, and also this map you can find here. It's good to, I think, print and put it on the toilet, you know, because there is a space where mostly people read something. And yeah, there is like the four principles, and each principle have like different section, and you can see what it's A, what it's 2A, and 3As, all right? So it's really handy to have in your office somewhere. If you deep dive into their web, like each part, it's really well described, and you can saw some which level is it, what it's focused on, some description, some techniques with examples, and also some failures. So it's really good to take a look. And now, how to start? I will show you some developers tool, which your colleague or yourself can implement into your code to help you with some accessibility. Also, you can learn more about the VCAG and how to implement it. If you will implement it by yourself, start with level A. That's the best recommendation, to not like try to achieve like everything in one moment, because there is like a lot of things you have to do. So it's good to like step by step. So start with level A, because if you want to go to level AA, you will also need to achieve level A. So now the tool. If you are developers and working with ESLint, there is this plugin. If you don't know, A11Y, it stands for accessibility, because accessibility have 11 letters, and it's the first and last, and it's this shortcut stands for accessibility. It help you like pointed out the like missing alternative text like in a picture, because when you have some picture on your website, it should also have some alternative text what it's inside the picture, because the reader will reach the picture and says that's picture, but the blind people can see like what's in the picture, so it needs to be like transfer into text. Also something like text like link or click here, it should be more descriptive for those devices. The second tool is AX, accessibility testing tool. The authors of this tool says it can reveal up to 57% problems connected with VCIG and work with your console. And the last tool I will recommend, it's browser stack accessibility testing tool, and that will give you some review of your website. It's not like 100% you can achieve just with those tools. You will also need to learn something. But yeah, that's help in the beginning of this journey. And the last page, also at Applifting, we are now like 2 years. We are in accessibility. So if you are like, okay, I think I cannot handle myself right now, so you can ask to us to do the accessibility for you. Yeah, some review and also some workshops and probably everything. So thank you so much. I hope that was like good for you. If you want to connect with me, there is my LinkedIn. And also, if you want to find some sources about it and the law and the directive and the map and stuff like that, I prepared for you the sources here.
Thank you, Damian, for the wonderful presentation. If this saves just a few people here, the several hours you spent with the directive, I think good job. So
yes, it's really long. Don't read it, please don't. It's in all languages, of course. So if you want, it's 46 pages, like of really boring text. So yeah, don't do that.
I had this party last weekend, and Damian was reading the directive the whole time, so
Yeah.
amazing. Anyway, before I hand over the microphone to you for your questions, I have a question myself. So if I have a product and I implement everything that the Czech law says, am I safe in the whole European Union, or should I also read the directives locally?
Yeah, if you met the level AA, there is the norm in a level of European Union says like, yeah, the level AA, it's enough. So yeah, it should be good for every country in European Union.
Perfect, lovely. Are there any other questions in the room? Anyone?
No legal questions, please.
Hi, thank you for the talk, first of all. And I have two questions, if I may. The first, can alt text be abused? Like, it's important to have alt text for like the images and stuff for readers. And can we abuse them? Or like, how is it gonna be? Is it gonna be enforceable? Like, you can abuse alt text when like it's a picture. You can write something that is not related to the image, right? Can you abuse alt texts if you want to? If people will do that.
You should not.
I know. I know.
But yeah, if you need to like give the information to people which
I
cannot
understand.
see,
Yes.
you know, so it's also depends of the device they have. If like okay.
No, like what I was asking is that because I think like alt texts are also searchable. So some people would like to play with SEO.
Yes, but
This needs to be.
yeah,
Is it?
but yeah, it's not a good idea because when the authority came, they will also look in alt text, and that's one of the
Well,
criteria,
I think so.
you
I'm
know.
just asking about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you are like using for your SEO, so that can be also the problem for you, you know.
Can be evil with it. Okay, so the second question. Question. So, how is it enforceable? Those rules. What would happen if you're like a website?
Yeah,
Is it on a like? Sorry. Yeah. Go on.
probably some authority came to you and did some review on your website, and it can like do the review through the criteria and says, okay, your website it's like have like this mistake, not mistake, but it doesn't fulfill the criteria, and can say like, okay, there's the penalty for you.
So it's only on registrars in the European Union, or all registrars for domains? Any domain? Any domain extension, or only .cz, .eu,
No, like every service and product who is sell in Czech, and not just sell,
Like-
of course.
any website or product that is available in the European
Yes.
Union or Czech, is going to be audited.
It's will be because Czech law. It's not like they will like start to search all the website. It will
Yeah.
probably like someone will be complaining to authors, and the authors came, do the review, and after that came to and say,
I get it. So it's not like gonna be a big audit on.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. More questions? Yeah.
I have a question. I looked at this BCGA tool, and it's basically concerning on the website. Is there also any influence on some kind of other applications, maybe some mobile applications, desktop application, maybe WebAssembly or other stuff?
If you read the whole VCG, it also says it's applicable for the mobile application and other stuff. So it's not just for the website. So they have it at the beginning in the introduction.
But it's much more difficult to, let's say, audit mobile application, no, compared to website.
It is, but probably we'll do it with the readers, you know. Because when we are doing like at Applifting, the review for the client, we came and we have like source code, so we can take like on a code. But how the authority will be doing like next year, I don't really know, you know.
Okay, because I'm very curious because like in HTML you can easily like describe images with alts and so on, but in mobile application it's much more limited, you know. There is capabilities which you can implement.
If you take the device who read the images, it will says you if it's like it's the property like the text it's filled, you know, because it will say something or not.
Yeah, but there is like, even if I want to do it, there is it's impossible technically. Because sometimes, I don't know, it's some OpenGL game, for example, and how I can, in OpenGL application, how I can describe images and so on, you know.
Yeah, if you are like mobile developer, you will know how to describe the images because that's nothing like really special actually.
Okay, thank you.
I would say that if it's not inspectable, then it's definitely not accessible, right? So
Yeah.
Other questions?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I was just curious. Is there anything in the legislation about like yearly or like every 3 years audits? Like that would be mandatory, because I know there are audits that are happening on a yearly basis if the company wants to like display it somewhere on a device or on a website that we are compliant for customers.
Yeah,
For
there's
this,
no.
There's nothing about that.
Nothing about that. There is some part, but it's mostly about the some let's say items, which is like material, you know, to have some stamp like CE, and it stands for accessible, but I don't think so. There is something like you can make the same in some application or some software. Maybe somewhere you can have like, because nowadays the companies who has like really good accessibility, they like really promote it. You know, they have it. Oh, hey, look, we are like accessible for everyone. You know, because it's something like let's say marketing good way, but.
Cool. Thank
you. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, first of all, thanks for the presentation, Ritman. I just actually realized that maybe this will be a tough question, but it's related for the third-party frameworks, right? Because you have a web application, for instance, and you are using, I don't know, charts library or so on, right? And the question is here, like the frameworks differ, right? And some of them are just not good with the accessibility and some not. So how is at the end with the responsibility as a product producer?
The law here says like if you create it, you have to be accessible and you give the accessible product to the who using it, you know. So that's really, if you are software house, you are responsible to do it like this, the product accessible. because when the authority came to the not third party but the client and says, hey, you are not accessible, the client probably came to you and say, hey, you sell me the product which wasn't accessible, but there's the law and you have to give me the accessible product.
Thank you.
Brilliant. So, anyone else? Any other questions? Doesn't seem like it. In that case, thank you very much, Damian.
Thank you.
And before we continue with the next presentation, let's enjoy a 5-minute break. Freshen up yourselves and get something to drink, perhaps something to eat, and see you in 5 minutes. 5 minutes are gone. I heard there is an exciting hockey match right now, which is still going on as we speak. I don't know much about those things, but seems pretty important. Anyway, after we've seen the accessibility from the QA standpoint, now we are going to look at the same topic, but from the standpoint of a product developer. So all welcome Jáchym from our product team, who'll be talking about this topic. So Jáchym, take it away.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Jáchym, and I work as product developer at Applifting. I have some experience working on a project where we dealt with accessibility from the product point of view, so I would like to share that with you today. What Damian said is sort of a sunny day scenario when you have everything accessible, and that's obviously perfect. However, sometimes you need a strategy. It takes some time to implement everything in a sensible way. So then it comes down to product people to set priorities and come up with some sort of a strategy how to do it, in a logical way. So this presentation is intended for everyone who would like to start with that. Maybe can you please raise your hands if you are a product person, just so I know how many product people came today? Like anyone? Like 1 or 2? Okay, that's great. But I think anyone can benefit from this presentation, I hope. Just a quick summary. I will start the presentation by summarizing the main reasons why it's important to consider accessibility in your product. Then I will briefly talk about the 3 pillars of accessibility that should be covered during product development. And as the main part of the presentation, I will offer several practical recommendations how to start. By the way, accessibility is sometimes referred as A11Y, mainly in the US, because it's a long word with 13 letters, which starts with A and finishes with Y. So I use it as a shortcut here as well, because it saves space on the slides. So what are the main reasons to consider accessibility from the product point of view? Well, there are many people in the world that actually lives with some kind of a disability. It's estimated that more than 15% of the world live with some kind of a disability, which includes people with learning disabilities such as dyslexia, people who suffer from impaired vision, people dealing with mental health issues, or people who live with motoric disabilities and have to use a wheelchair, for example. There are more than 135 million disabled people in Europe, which can also include elderly people who tend to have impaired vision as well. So there are many users who actually benefit from accessibility. However, disabilities are not only permanent. These personas are taken from Microsoft's Inclusive Design Toolkit, and they distinguish between 3 types of disabilities: permanent, temporary, and situational. I talked about permanent disabilities on the previous slide, but there's also temporary disability. Everyone can get ill sometimes. For example, you can injure your arm. You can break your arm, and you might need to use your phone with one hand only. So that means all the apps you use need to be usable with just one hand, right? And then you actually benefit from accessibility features, even though temporarily. Or you can also experience situational disabilities. For example, maybe you become a new parent and you have to carry your baby in one hand and use your phone in the other, which also makes you unable to use all features you might need if you had both hands, and you need your phone to be usable with one hand only. So this toolkit really underscores the importance of accessibility for everyone, not only for those parts of people who are temporarily disabled. So now when we briefly establish the case for disability, let's talk about what it actually includes. Accessibility experts sometimes talk about 3 pillars of accessibility that need to be covered: accessible code, accessible design, and accessible content. Well, first thing is accessible code, and it refers to the markup. It should be as semantic as possible, and it should follow a logical structure. People with visual impairments tend to use screen readers. And screen readers actually use the semantics to interpret what's on the page, what's the meaning of different parts of the page. So if you have a non-semantic HTML with a bunch of divs and spans, the screen reader doesn't really know what to tell the user, and the users get lost. Another important thing is that the markup should have a logical structure. It should start with a header, it should end with a footer. And that's because screen reading software goes linearly. It goes, everything goes in the order. So it really needs to follow that. And if it doesn't, users get lost. Also, an important thing is that HTML elements should be focusable in a logical order, which allows all functionality to be fully accessible by the keyboard. This is also in the WCAG standards, by the way, and I think this is not only beneficial for people with disabilities, but also for everyone, because I sometimes use the computer only with a keyboard. So this is another thing that's very, very useful for all, I think. Then let's talk a bit about, however, the user makes a mistake and a following validation message pops up, which says, well, please fix formatting of the form fields marked with the red color. This is an extreme example, but it illustrates a very important principle, because if you are a colorblind person, you see something like this, and then you don't know which field is red, right? And you are lost. You are unable to complete the transaction, and you need to do trial and error method to actually find out what happened. So the right way to do it would either be to display the validation message next to the form field, or even better would be to actually show the message at the beginning with all other possible errors, so the user sees on one place what's wrong. And if they don't see and use a screen reader, this is the first thing that the screen reader reads, and actually it instantly says the user what they should fix. Another point is related to contrast ratios. Just very quickly, this is also related to the WCAG guidelines. And what you basically see here is that the bottom row is not accessible. There's not high enough contrast between the background and the foreground. And the AA is in the middle, and the AAA, the best rating you should aspire to, is at the top. So this is, the luminance ratio between colors. Third example of accessible design is Zoom. This is some sort of website that sells peanut butter, but this is zoomed to 200%. And another WCAG guideline says that all websites should be fully accessible at 200%. So this example, everything looks fine, the page is fully usable. This is something that should be done as well. Right. The third pillar is accessible content. Basically, all images and icons that you use should have an alternate text that clearly describes the meaning of the image for someone who can see it. There's a general rule that a 9th grade pupil should be able to understand your website, of course, unless your content is intentionally targeted for a specific audience. Like, if you offer investment products, you obviously don't need 9th graders to understand them. But if your website is general, this is a good rule of thumb how to describe everything. Last example is related to links. The links should describe actually the target of the link, where the link goes. If you say read more, and someone uses a screen reader, they don't know what happens if they click on that link. You should always say something like read our full mission, because it communicates what the user finds if they click on the link. Right, so there are many things. And when should you start thinking about that? It makes sense to start as soon as possible, because the sooner you start, the more money you can save. This chart actually comes from a case study conducted by DEC, which is an organization that deals with accessibility, and they show how much time did it take to fix accessibility defects, the same accessibility defects in different stages of development. So something that took 3 hours to fix in the development phase, right, in the initial development phase, took 37 hours to fix when you are in production because there are additional testing involved. It takes more time to fix something when it's running on production, obviously. What they also found in the case study is that 67% of accessibility defects actually originated in the design stage already. So this is like very cheap to actually incorporate everything when you are preparing like requirements, that's product part, but also when you are designing, because then it gets all much cheaper. This is of course applicable if you are developing a new product. If you already have something running in production, then of course, it gets a bit more difficult to fix, but if you are just starting, it really makes sense to start as soon as possible. Right, so now to the main part of the presentation. If you are a product person, how do you start with accessibility to save yourself some trouble before it's too late? I will offer a few tips for some activities you can do. First thing, a good start is to look at the relevant data. So, as I said before, there are about 15% of people living with disabilities. If your website offers general products and services, there will likely be a similar percentage among your users. There's no reason to think otherwise, unless, of course, you have a very specific target audience. And in that case, you probably know their needs already because your product is very specific. So, for example, there is a WebAIM survey, and that's periodically conducted among screen reader users, and they are asking all different kinds of questions: what devices they use, what operating system, what mobile platform, etc. And there's an example of what disability type they suffer from, and you can see that most screen reader users obviously suffer from blindness and low vision, but there are also people who have cognitive disabilities, which may be people who can struggle understanding the content of your website, and there are also people who suffer from some kind of a partial deafness among them, and motor issues. Right. Another thing you can do is to check your website. There's a great database called Access Guide, where you can see more than 100 of accessibility recommendations with practical examples. So you can go through them. It's actually the place where I took my examples from, and you can check which apply to your own product. So this is a very quick way to do sort of a self-evaluation and see how you are doing. A lot of accessibility issues may actually originate from brand guidelines and UI kits. So if you compare your brand guidelines or UI kits to the Access Guide database, you can spot the issues and address them in the guidelines, which can have a large influence on many of your products. This can also be a good time to conduct the accessibility review that Damian talked about, and have an accessibility expert to evaluate their website. So that could be an additional input, but you can easily check yourself and spot the main issues, like I said. This is my favorite. You can conduct a user-based segmentation, because it can be overwhelming to make some sense of the various use cases, recommendations, and types of disabilities that should be addressed. So conducting a workshop with stakeholders can help you with segmenting the user base and prioritizing different groups. There is the Inclusive Panda canvas that can be used. It was created by a Swedish designer, and it can be used in a workshop. You can just place post-its on the panda, on different parts of it. And the panda actually helps you decide which users you want to address. So the head of the panda is everyone who uses your service, that's the participants. You have someone who's included as the nose of the panda. So that's the people who are intentionally designing for. But you also have some unwanted people. That's the people you actively don't use you don't want to use your service. For example, if you are selling alcohol beverages, then you obviously don't want children to use your product. Or if you have wild animations, you don't want epileptic people to visit your website, right? So there are some users you need to actively discourage from using it. You also have excluded people, and it's the people that actually use your website or your product, but you didn't place any effort in designing it for them. And for example, you can have your website accessible already, but it may not be intentional. And if you are not paying attention to it, and then you release a new feature, it can break the accessibility. So this is a good thing to actually put it like this. And this kind of segmentation actually may be necessary due to time or budget constraints. So you may not have resources to address all groups at the same time. So you may need to prioritize and create some sort of a strategy and decide what makes sense, who's included and who's not included at this moment. That's a very important decision. Right, so now when you have segmented your user base, it can be a good time to start empathizing with your users, and accessibility personas can be a way to do it. For example, let's take Lee. Lee is someone who is colorblind. He doesn't see red and green, but he frequently shops online. It's difficult for him to make product choices, and it's hard for him to finish forms and payments because some apps are designed in the way I showed you. So if he makes a mistake, he doesn't know what mistake he did. So Lee is only choosing shops that don't create barriers for him to order something. And if Lee can't use your service, he will go elsewhere. You will lose his money because he won't shop at your website. So I would recommend creating a persona for each user group you want to address, because they may have very different needs, and empathizing with them can really help you imagine what their needs are. When you have your personas described, you can also conduct usability testing with real users. The most important thing is to recruit users that match your accessibility personas, because the healthy people cannot test the website the same way as disabled users. So it's not enough if, for example, a healthy person just closes their eyes and pretends to be blind, because people with disabilities have a very different mental model of the outside world, and some of them may never have seen what a website looks like, so they don't know, they don't know what to imagine by that. This is just a chart that shows that 5 users per group may be enough to detect 85% of usability issues. This is also a case study based on hundreds of user tests. So just 5 people can tell you where the biggest problems are and help you spot the biggest issues, and you can look for the quick wins if you can fix them. Right, so when you collect all the relevant insights from the users, you have your data, it's time to talk to the designers, which is very important because you need to brief your designers about what your goals are, who your users are, and what you want to achieve. Product people usually prepare design briefs where they describe the requirements and tell everything that the design should fulfill. And for example, it's a good idea to tell your designers what actually your intentions are, and that they need to design and prepare for everything that you want. So they should have some place to put the description for non-text content. They should have a place to actually where to place the captions in videos or transcripts of audios, stuff like that. So this is something I would really recommend, because as we saw on one of the previous slides, 67% of usability issues can actually be detected in the design stage already. And the last thing I want to say is, when it comes to development, you also need to tell your developers that this is one of the product goals that you are trying to achieve. Also, your testers need to know, because they need to design a testing strategy. So there is usually a definition of done, which is a list of checks that need to be passed if the user story is accepted. And this is an example of something you can put in there. For example, that an automated accessibility test need to be passed, all the WCAG requirements need to be fulfilled, and accessibility statement on the website need to be updated. This is something a proud person would do, but it can be a definition of done part as well. So this is all from my end. I'm looking forward to your questions. Maybe you can shoot them now, or maybe you can just ask during the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the lovely presentation. I bet there are questions now. So, does anyone have any questions? Anyone? Okay. Ah, no, right there.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I'm actually curious about automated usability testing. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Do you do it in your development as well?
I think this is rather a question that Damian could answer better. I see him laughing. The question was about automated accessibility tests, right? So that's something that our QA team prepares. If we say we need to test accessibility, they have their tools and they have their methods they use. I think you talked about it a bit before me, right? Didn't you? So that's something you can talk to Damian about if you are interested more in that.
Thank you.
That's me.
If you forgot. So, any more questions? Anyone? Okay, it doesn't seem like it. In that case, thank you very much, Jáchym.
You're welcome.
Well, this was the second and last presentation, but now, in 5 minutes, we'll put some chairs right here and we'll talk about accessibility and other stuff as well. And not just with Damian and Jáchym, but also with Honza and Martin. Honza is from FTMO and Martin is from STRV. So stay tuned and see you in a few minutes. Wrong. Right. Left. Right. Right. So it's about time. So if you would be so kind to take your seats. The guests are already here. They have taken their seats, so let's not keep them waiting. And as I said, I have prepared a few questions, and I have split those into a few interesting topics. So we'll talk about accessibility, we'll talk about AI, we'll talk about performance testing, and we'll talk about the other topics. So yeah. And at any point, if you have a question, just raise your hand, and I'll sprint toward you with the microphone, and you'll have your time to ask the question. So my first question is for Damian and Jáchym, and it's you both spoke about the accessibility from your unique standpoints. So I would like to ask you, like, if you could give us the short version in 1 or 2 sentences. What is accessibility all about in your area of expertise in product and QA?
Sorry. Well, in 2 sentences, I would say it's about enabling using your product to as many users as possible. I think just 1 sentence, but that couldn't be enough.
In QA, I think like make all your products to be accessible to everyone, you know, because it's also about some equality and to be available to all people who needs your product. So to ensure your product it's quality and also accessible.
Okay, and can you give us any practical experience you have with accessibility? And this time, the question is for everyone.
Yeah, like at Applifting, we are now like providing accessibility reviews. So that's really part of my job when with one of our colleague who is into the accessibility right now for 8 years, and he's really focused on. So yeah, it's like check all the web from our clients and go through the whole website and write down some hints and yeah, some reviews.
I used to work on a product where we did accessibility testing with fully visually impaired users that were using screen readers. And that was really interesting because, well, what I remember the most from this experience is how it hurt my ego as a product owner, because as a product owner you need to like your product, but when we showed that to the testers for the first time, they actually said after like 10 minutes that they don't understand some element on the website, they're stuck and they don't know what to do. So it really hurt me because I already thought we did, you know, a good job, but then there was some coding mistake that, you know, forced these people to stop. So that's a really interesting experience I recommend. And also it's really interesting to see how these people actually use the internet and how they think about web in general.
Thanks. Martin and Honza, do you have anything to add?
Oh, hi. Martin from STRV, just to reintroduce myself. And yeah, so basically it's a really interesting topic, right? Accessibility. And no one, what happened? Oh, I'm still here. Sorry. Yeah, well, it's let's say, the last thing you think about during the development. Practically, I think like it was the norm. It's getting better and better, and yeah. So Sorry, excuse me. Bit nervous. Actually, my yeah.
It's quite all right.
Yeah. Sorry. So, well, when I first discovered about accessibility being important was actually not that long ago, and it was on a project called Float, and I was actually battling against the accessibility because like we were supporting landscape mode on one of the apps we were building on Android only, and the designs were made only for the portrait mode. So once you rotated the screen, it did something interesting, right? And I have a design background, so I quite didn't like that, but I was like, okay, let's make it work, and we just have to keep it working, usable state, right? The bare minimum, as we said. And yeah, I was battling against the landscape mode, and I didn't see why it should be there. Everyone was talking like accessibility, dude. And I was like, I don't know that word. And but as we all discovered tonight, it's actually really important. And now we're gonna introduce the landscape mode to the iOS version because we all have to. It's a part of the AA WCAD regulations. So everything has to be adjustable to landscape and portrait mode now. So yeah, that was my story of how I discovered accessibility.
Thanks. Honza?
So from my point of view, I will be mostly on the part of the management side because my experience comes from the medical, but medical from the physician's point of view, which is mostly not disabled people. And my current domain is trading, and as well there is not many real day traders which would be disabled or some like blind or something like that, because you simply cannot do it when you cannot see what's happening on the market and so on. So from my point of view, it will be, well, what is the added value to the business? Is it something we need really to care of? Is there some potential, some new customers we were overseeing so far? Or is it just another, let's say, official regulation we need to take care of and to be safe from some penalties? So I think, and my personal opinion is that the most companies will end up like that. They will evaluate on some hard data from some market analysis if there is some hidden value they could profit from, or if they just to be sure they are safe from the bureaus and will just go on with no extra work.
Thanks. That's a different way to look at it, and I completely understand from knowing your product that it's not really relevant to it. So are there many companies who would do just the bare minimum? Do you think so?
Well, I think there will be many. I don't have some analysis, so it's purely my personal opinion. But yes, I think if the companies are, well, there will be, I think, a lot of companies who will not be even like take aware of the fact that they should comply with some new EU policy. And then I think a lot of companies will just don't care because they will consider it as like, well, it's not our target customer or target sector. So yes, I think there will be a lot of companies who don't care about it. On the other side, I believe there will be companies who can realize that there is a really good space on the market. They could take more customers, for example, e-shops.
Thanks.
Do you have something?
Yeah. Actually, I want to react. Actually, the bare minimum, it's like pretty good level, you know, because it's on level AA. There is still like a lot of stuff you have to do, and if you bare the minimum, it meant your product is accessible. So,
just maybe one more question for you, Damian. So. you mentioned that the bare minimum is enough, but the question is, does the directive think about companies which do not have disabled people as the target audience?
Yeah, there is some exceptions which I covered in my topic. There is like exception if you it will be like super costly for you to change your product to be accessible. You can provide the authority some analysis why it's super costly for you, and the authority will review that, and if they agree with you, they can like exclude you for this law.
So do you have any prediction about what percentage of companies will go this way instead of implementing the WCAG? CAG?
No.
Well, let's see. Future will tell.
Want something more?
Yeah.
Well, I already talked today, I'm not sure with whom, but I think there is also another sector of companies, and they will implement even without knowing, because they are just users of some software companies who will need to comply with the policy. So these companies who will buy the software from them, for example, a lot of e-shops, you know, maybe company Shopify or some others, they will implement by default, and these or their customers will of course get these services. So it will be just up to them how they will take it and if they will update the content to be accessible as well. But I think this will be quite a huge share market, because there is just a few pure software companies and their customers is the most majority.
Yeah, I bet this might impact some small sellers which have like their own e-shops based on, I don't know, like the PHP framework, which I don't remember, and they don't have the centralized support and centralized updates. So maybe that will be a chance for the big companies to take over, right? But I think that the first step will be to get those small e-shop owners to know that, and I'm not sure if they will know. Anyway, we already spoke about the WCAG, and the question which I have is, you said, Damian, that the mobile applications are already covered by that, but still, should we basically change our attitude between web accessibility and mobile accessibility? Are there any differences? And it's a question to all of you, so anyone who knows?
Sorry, the question was about differences between mobile accessibility and web accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think in mobile, it's a bit more standardized because there are many accessibility features built in the, like in iOS and Android. I know there are actually from the WebAIM surveys, it comes out that about 75% of people in Europe actually use iOS because it has some sort of accessibility features that these users need. I don't know from the testing point of view what the difference is, but yeah, I think as Damian already mentioned, the WCAG guidelines explicitly state that they should be applied not only to smartphones, but also to, for example, on-screen screens in cars, right? So they should be applied to basically all devices that are intending for anybody, basically.
Would anyone like to add something?
Yeah, like it should be applied to all digital content, right? So for example, like you have a radio app and the radio app has a live audio and there should be captions, transcription. So that's gonna be an interesting topic. I don't know how, how they're gonna do that actually, but we'll see.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, also this is covered by the directive because there is some, of course, exceptions if you are broadcasting live that can be like without the titles, subtitles, but if you pre-record something, it should have the subtitles. So there is also some exceptions for that, but it's mostly in the European Union directive, not in a Czech law. But the Czech law like mentioned, okay, there is another stuff and you should read, you know, but it's too long. Doesn't do that.
Thanks. Before we get to the next topic, are there any questions regarding accessibility in the room? You can ask 4 people, so anyone?
Hey, sorry. When you mentioned the panels in the car, I immediately imagined the blind people driving, but I guess there's the exception. But with applications, and I mean, there's at least 2 people who work for companies that develop applications. What is it just for content that is like static? Or is it for content that, because I can't imagine anybody changing an application into accessibility mode when it's a mobile game. You know, it's moving super fast. It's like, oh, that character is moving there, and it's moving to the left, and it's swinging a sword, and you know, that has to be an exception, right?
Yeah, true. I don't have actually so much experience as Jáchym with people with visual impairment, so maybe he will know more about that. But yeah, it's the same. Like if you go to the London National Aquarium, there is in Braille language saying like what's that? But how many blind people came to see fish in the tanks? You know, like how many? You know, like you can open the book and have same experience actually. You know. And I think this one, it's the same with game. How maybe there is like special games for people with visual impairment, but I honestly doesn't know about them because I'm not the one who's like created for.
So the games are not in the directive.
It's not mentioned. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like directly games. No, sorry.
I just want to add that even the game industry is making their games accessible because a lot of impaired people have the issues, for example, with the colors, as already mentioned. So a lot of games nowadays have settings which allow you to set up the contrast you would like to use. They allows you to set up the font size, for example. It's allowed for you to set up captions if you cannot hear the sounds. There can be a voice overlaps. So if there is, for example, book in the game you need to read through, you can turn on this accessibility option and it will read the book for you instead you are reading the book. So I think the game industry is the one of those who are already implementing it because for them it's a huge market cap they could get with a little effort, let's say.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I wanted to say exactly. Many games already have accessibility features built in because there is a business case behind that. Yeah, I just a quick note regarding the blind person driving. I mean, as I mentioned before, blind people are obviously the biggest group among the users we're talking about, but you have many people who are, you know, just slightly visually impaired or dyslexic or just situationally impaired, stuff like that. So, you know, there are many more user groups and the accessibility should cover all of them. So a blind person probably won't be driving, but somebody with dyslexia or somebody who's just has an attention disorder, for example, ADHD, can benefit from that.
Lovely, thanks. Anything else to add, anyone?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, maybe there are exceptions, right? So you have to follow the rules, but you can have an exception, and one of the exceptions is games. And for example, as I talked about the portrait mode versus the landscape mode, you have a third-person shooter or a first-person shooter, doesn't matter, and you have a field of view that's panoramic, and it wouldn't make sense to have the game in the portrait mode. So this is going to be an exception, and you can basically apply that this doesn't it doesn't work in the portrait mode. So there are exceptions, and I don't think that they will force us to make first person shooter games for blind people. But yeah. Oh yeah, you're gonna get more experience points for playing in the portrait mode. That interesting idea.
So I hope the regulators will be as sane as our panelists today, because that'd be lovely, but knowing European Union, not everything is as simple. So if there are no more questions about accessibility, I'll move to the second topic, which is kind of obvious. It's AI, it's the usual. So what's today's AI QA landscape like in terms of the coming of AI? And maybe this question is for Martin and Honza.
Start, please.
Well, I think you need AI to overcome your nervosity. So I see some nice use case. But when we consider AI in IT, I think most of the AI tools nowadays focuses mostly or primarily on the developers. So from the QA perspective, I think more work is coming to us, because the AI tooling for QA is somehow staying behind the scene. Of course, there are tools which tells you, or the creators market it to us like AI will help you with writing tests, but what's not said is that these are unit tests, of course. These are not usually the end-to-end tests or some integration tests. So yeah, for developers it's definitely a help. For testers it's more work coming, and we will see if someone will realize that. And my personal opinion is that it will become an issue quite soon, because the QA will become a bottleneck in the product development, I mean software product development. And managers will be asking, okay, what time you need to test it? And we will be, well, still the same. I know the developers are now way faster because they can use the AI to do the patenting or common use case and so on, but we don't have tools like that. We still need to do our routine in the common way, because the tooling or AI tooling we have so far is not helping us as much as to the developers. So now I hope you are not that nervous.
All good, thank you. Yeah, so exactly, as you said, there's gonna be more code to test pretty soon, and there's gonna be probably the same amount of QAs, or at least the ratio developers/QAs is gonna be the same. And yeah, we're gonna need help with that, but thanks to the computer vision, I think it's gonna be here in a few years of time, I think so. So yeah, but like currently it's mostly like helpers that help you with daily agenda. I mostly use ChatGPT. It's really nice. It was helping me not being nervous before I came here, and it didn't work, obviously. So, but it's most of the times it's useful. So, yeah.
Thanks. So if developers use AI tools, which they do, and for example in Applifting they they are much more productive. So you are completely right about that. Do testers also use AI tools? Do you guys use any? Can you give any recommendations?
Well, we as a department at STRV, we are currently working more towards automation and using AI tools. But it's such a fast evolving market that you have to basically you have to do a lot of research. And the thing is, implementing AI, even for the automation tests and stuff like that, you have to invest a lot. So first you have to know what is going to be good for your product, and then you have to implement it, and sometimes it's just not worth the hustle. So yeah. So I never implemented any AI self-caring, test something, no.
Okay, so from my point of view, I think there are two areas. The first one is to use plug-and-play tools. So I personally prefer Copilot from GitHub, powered by OpenAI. Then I'm playing with the Gemini from Google. Still, I prefer the Copilot because the Gemini, from my personal usage, it still seems to stand a little bit behind. But I'm using it to implement code behind for my automated tests. Actually, I didn't find AI not good enough to help me with describing the systems I need to test when integrated together. So my prompt engineering may be not good enough, or I think the tool is still not ready to do that. On the other side, we in FTMO are playing with the idea to have our own fine-tuned AI models based on our code base. So they might be able to help us with such things because they might understand our code base. So that's one area we are playing with. And then we are working with fine-tuning models on our trading data. But I cannot say more now because it's an object of some business secret.
Sure. So Damian, Jáchym, do you have any experience with AI tools?
Yeah, I use it to GPT and sometimes Copilot, but I'm not programming right now so much the code. Yeah, so using just ChatGPT helps with some analysis and stuff like that. Mostly for some testing strategies and risk management and so on.
Yeah, well, as a product developer, I use ChatGPT quite a lot because, well, I need several things. I need new ideas, and ChatGPT is, very good in generating different ideas or viewpoints. I sometimes need him or her to to explain me what the developers actually say. That's also very important because they say something technical, and ChatGPT can translate it to me, in slightly less technical terms. Regarding accessibility, it can help you generating the accessible content. I showed you, for example, image descriptions. There's even a Figma plugin that uses AI to actually incorporate accessible descriptions or alternative texts in your designs. So that's another additional thing. And I also know that a colleague of mine, a developer, used, I think it was a Copilot to refactor some parts of inaccessible website to make it more accessible. So these are some use cases I have experience with.
So apart from the Figma plugin you mentioned, it seems like you are mostly using some general tools, like ChatGPT. So it seems that there is place on the market for a specific QA AI tool. So how would that look? Like if you could dream up a AI tool, how would that look?
Yeah, there's one actually using the computer vision. machine learning, right? And interestingly enough, I was playing with the new ChatGPT 4.0, and they didn't roll out yet the function that it sees your screen. But you can take a print screen and cheat it, and so that's nice. But like it doesn't have a context. It can tell you a lot of stuff exactly. Like when there's something more technical than I'm used to coming from the back end, you just show it to it and it describes you absolutely everything, right? But all possible things that it could mean, which is really nice for me. But the thing I dream of, or I don't know if I dream about it, but it's a new thing coming in for 8 years, so it's coming in for long, but it's not gonna come soon. It's called Checky.ai or IO, I don't know, sorry. And Jason Arbon is a guy behind it, and he basically he sees that the AI tools are lagging behind for quality assurance. So he made up a thing that like, okay, let's use computer vision to see the screen, see the website, see the app, and it's gonna behave like a person. So it's gonna see, a shopping cart, and it's gonna know it's a shopping cart. It doesn't have to be told or anything, and then it tries to, create personas and do some tests, and eventually it will make the tests. It will make a report for you. And after that, it's gonna repeat the tests every single day. And if you move something somewhere else, then it's gonna, recognize. But if it's gonna be missing and it's gonna break some logic that the AI already learned you have on the product, it's gonna notify you. So basically, I don't know if I'm dreaming about this, but it's coming. It's something like this. I don't think the guy is capable of pulling this 100%. But if you look at ChatGPT, what they are doing now, with the API and everything, there's gonna be a bigger team, full of bright people, and they're gonna bring it to us in a few years. So that's gonna be interesting. It's gonna definitely tackle the problem with more code, and maybe we will have to change the roles as QAs to AI bot moderators. So it's gonna be interesting, definitely. Yeah, so that's
Lovely. Sounds amazing. Like, I hope it will have some kind of like IQ slider. You can simulate the IQ of the user. That'd be really lovely.
So I will be dreaming a lot. Imagine you are on some another planet where you have a specification. So in case we have this nice document, I would like to provide it to the AI, and then AI will tell me what the use cases should be, define me edge cases we need to go through, test. If we will be continuing in our dream, it will write down all these tests and implement code behind for automation. It will also be able to decide whether it's worth of automation or if it will be better to keep it manual. And as a very, very premium feature, it could be that it will even find issues with the specification itself.
Honza, did you just describe a development team?
Well, I see there is the same potential from the development side, yes.
Because this sounds like a complete development team.
Yes, that's what a lot of people outside of IT is dreaming, that we all lose our jobs and we'll find out what it is to work with a shovel.
Hopefully, yeah. Looking forward to shovels. Anyway, maybe another question is, many products nowadays have some kind of generative AI inside of them. So how would one go about testing generative content? What's important and how to approach that? Because each time you are getting a different response, right?
So I think it's a very complicated question, because there is a lot of points of view how you can determine what are you going to evaluate. There are already algorithms how to evaluate outputs of the generative AI, and how to compare them to each other. Unfortunately, I am not an expert in that area, so cannot say something particular. Other thing is that it depends on the usage of the generative AI, because if you work with some fine-tuned model for some very specific area, and it could be, let's say, translations of legal documents, it could be generating marketing materials where you need to take care, for example, of disclaimers and so on to be legal compliant as well. Or if you have some AI used on evaluating some graphs, for example, the trading data, or from cardiac graphs, so it can determine you have some arrhythmia, for example. But it's more the machine learning stuff, I would say. But you can also use the generative AI to provide a diagnosis for the physicians and the patients. So, yeah, quite hard stuff. And I think others have something to say as well when I see Damian.
I just one thing, because I was testing generative AI for multiple times, and you also need to think out of the box, you know, because there is some obvious like prompt, yeah, give me something nasty, something with I don't know, genitals and stuff like that. Also, we have like in at Applifting, here Philip created the AI bot. It calls Dreamario, and you just say, I dream about, and say something, and it will make a picture of what you are dreaming about. And yeah, once Philip came to me and says like, yeah, we covered all like naked pictures, you know, so you cannot break the Dreamario to give you some naked pictures. Yeah, but if you say like, I dream about a woman in a shower, mostly people in the shower doesn't have anything on themselves. So this AI gives me like completely naked woman, and I say, yeah, look, I break it for you with love.
Thank you. Fail. Any other opinions on generative AI testing?
Well, I guess an important thing to consider is that the generative AI tools work like probabilistically, right? They estimate like a probability of that something is correct, and then they print out the output. So if you collect the outputs and you have a large amount of them, then you can statistically evaluate whether they gave you what you wanted. You can have 100 version of the same thing and calculate how many times the generative AI actually generated what you wanted. So there's one way to test it, probably. Another point is the difference between generative AI and AI that's used to detect something. Because if you have an AI algorithm that's intended to detect, for example, a car on an image, then you can, then you can also statistically evaluate the outputs. How many times did the AI do it correctly? How many mistakes did it make, and stuff like that. So the methods are mostly statistical, I think, and you, of course, have to collaborate with AI engineers on that.
Thanks. Martin, would you like to add something? Or yeah.
I have nothing to add. I'm just going to hold the microphone.
Lovely. So, are there any more questions about AI in QA? Anyone? No, it's not really, but you have QA people here, so I guess you'll just get an answer.
Hi, thank you. It's not that like I have a very specific question. I'd like to talk about AI, what you think about it. Am I off now? Okay, because I cannot hear myself. Okay, so the first idea is do you think that what we call now AI is just a product of processing power getting very, very, very fast, and that it's not something like very special. First of all, I know nothing. I'm not like a smart person, but AI, it is impressive, but it feels like it's like I'm disenchanted by it, because the idea is that they got to a point where they were able to steal all the data available in the world, so they got their chance. But now things are changing. So I would like you to tell me about, do you think AI is actually impressive realistically? I just don't feel like it. I feel like it's, I'm not like being afraid or something that it's going to take a job or whatever, but it feels like it's just stolen things. That's what I feel.
Let's just keep the short answers, because I think this sounds like an amazing question for the debate.
There is another. Okay. Yeah. It's a very long question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so quick answers. I'm not good at those, sorry. Yeah, well, sorry. Definitely AI, it's, there's a boom right now, but it's not like somebody 5 years decided like we have the power now, let's, you know, create the models. It's a long time coming, and it's not just the language models, it's more complicated than that. And it's definitely, they are basic, the thing is that it's going super fast, but it could go faster, but we have to, they have to, not us, thankfully. They really have to think about what to feed it, right? Because like if you just take the whole internet and put it there, it would be a mess. So they have to, the language models, they have to be learned from a very specific things. That's one of the things that OpenAI did very well. That's the reason why they are so good. And now they're just making it better, and it's gonna be really, really good. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm personally not like blown away by AI, but it really accelerated the speed learning new things. Because if I know what to ask, if I needed to explain something to me, if I have some basic understanding of something and I want to go deeper, I don't have to Google anymore. You know, I have to Google eventually if I really want to find some quality stuff. But for like a really broad understanding of something, of some new area, if you have a new project from a client that does something you've never heard anything about ever, you know, it's a really fast way to get on board, and it really changed the way I'm thinking about information. It really changed the way I'm learning new things. And I think it really changed a lot for me. So I'm not like really blown away, but I think the impact is huge.
So I'm the opposite. I'm quite impressed because when I realize what everything should have happened in the past, so we make it happen nowadays, it's amazing. Imagine that someone has to invent a transistor 70 years ago, then a lot of people and generations had to push it to the GPUs, which are used nowadays to supply enough computing power. Then there is a lot of scientists and mathematicians who involved or developed the algorithms. And the most amazing thing, I think, is even though it's very deterministic, we do not know why it decided how it decided. Yes, we know it's just a probability vector, but we don't know why these numbers are what they are. And I think it's a fascinating thing, and also a source of concern as well, because something is able to make decisions, and we do not know why these decisions were made. So I'm impressed. I'm a little bit afraid where it could lead, because if we learn from the past what the humans are doing with the technology, then it might be a little bit scary. On the other side, I'm looking very positively to the future, because we now have an opportunity to be the part when the history is changing, because it could boost the productivity, which did not happen for decades. Yeah, realize when it was for the last time when humankind may make like a huge leap towards in our technological development.
Yes, but we'll go back to like a simple point, is that it's what I've noticed is that I feel like it's all just a mimic. I feel like it's all stolen things.
Current state of development, what we are talking, well, we will be talking in the near future is a general AI, which will be able not to just give you responses they already seen, but to create a whole new one which were not seen before.
I'm somewhere between Jáchym and Jan, you know, but I just want to add, because there is so many things already say, but if you look to some music and really deep dive into the notes, you can find some music composers. They are also using some parts from Mozart, from the guy before them, you know. So I think doesn't also this one stolen? Because you also create like amazing music with part of different artists, you know, musicians. And also these guys, it means like they don't, or the law doesn't says like this guy stole like this piece from the Mozart, this piece from Beethoven, you know, like it's a bit maybe in our genes to those stuff. So maybe AI it's more human than you think.
Yeah, maybe imagine that you're gonna read absolutely every book in the world, and you're gonna watch everything, and you're gonna pretty much know everything, and you're gonna be sitting in this room, and we're gonna be asking you like, I don't know your name, sorry. Okay, difficult name. Okay, John. John, tell me about the European Accessibility Act, please. And you're gonna start talking, and that's not something that a regular person do. So I find that pretty amazing. So it's not a gimmick, I would say. Obviously, yeah, it copies kind of things, but everything copy derives from something, right? So it's evolution, exactly.
Great discussion, but the big question is, aren't we all just like next token predictors, right? So.
Thank you. Now, when we're talking about the gimmicks, like I think we've all seen like a lot of ads and things like that, where companies try to sell you products that have some sort of algorithm, and they just start calling it AI to like, so they can say that they have AIs. But I wanted to ask about the opposite. What do you think is the best product that uses AI, that is like the best use case, where it like really shines through with all the like added value, you know? If it doesn't have to be something that you worked on, just something that you came across and thought that it's like, yes, this is what AI was made for.
I have to think about that. I mean, do you guys have a clear answer?
Well, from my point of view, I think these are mostly appliances. Most of the people is not even aware. Mostly in the industry, for example, signal processing. For example, when you have some kind of cardio stimulator, for example, then it's processing all these data and it's able to, in the real time, to provide you with the diagnosis what's happening within your body, for example. And these kind of appliances, for example, car makers are using AI with cameras to determine how to say it. For example, issues with the material. So if there is some kind of crack or in the metal or something like that, they are able to determine, because these cameras are more precise and more reliable than the human eye. So I think these are the appliances where the AI will shine. I don't think it's the most common stuff we know, like, hey, I make AI to provide me some dirty word, for example.
Yeah, as Honza mentioned, I think the best AI gonna be those who save lives, right? So like if you have the screen of your lungs, like the Röntgen screen, it can analyze if you have the cancer somewhere or something like that, and it's more precise than the human eyes. So that will be like the AIs who will save the lives.
Yeah, I think the best use cases we have for the AI are those that can help us solve those big issues, like you know, climate crisis, you could say, or a shortage of medical staff, shortage of teachers, because as the guys mentioned, there are many use cases in medtech that are really better at detecting specific diagnoses than humans. There are also AI products that actually can provide people with psychotherapy, and there are studies that actually chatbots can have a higher like success in providing psychotherapy than humans if they are properly trained. So there are really studies like that. You know, so these kind of stuff that will help us tackle the big issues. I think those are those use cases that are the most meaningful, I guess.
Right. Thanks. I know only one example, and that's a bad one, and that's like the AI in first-person shooters. It's really bad.
Hi, sorry, I wanted to go back to the QA, AI and QA, which, as you were mentioning, it's kind of like between you two, there's a difference, but that you strongly believe that or your vision was beautiful. But as it was mentioned, I was exactly thinking that the one thing that is going to change for QA is that there's going to be two camps for QA. One is going to be heavily manual, because there are some things that will require manual testing unless you can put cameras in there and make it super complex testing setup. And then either you're going to have QA people that are going to be heavily involved in automation, or you can actually completely disregard this group because the automated tools are going to be implemented more into the development side. And when the developers have the proper product description, then they can use the AI to generate the code or help them generate the code and create the tests and make sure that the code base is maintained by the automated tests. And that's going to eliminate the need for the automated testers. Do you believe that, or do you agree, or do you disagree? I was thinking that.
I would say I kind of agree, but at the same time, as you said, there has to be manual testing, right? Because like some things you have to use your eyes and your hands and to control the thing. But that will be most probably covered too, right? With the computer vision, because like cars nowadays, they see other cars and they know what it is. They see people in the streets, and there's going to be self-driving cars in 10, 20 years on the streets. And the same is going to apply for this, but it's going to be sooner, right? So I would say I agree it's going to somehow, neglect both environments, but mostly automation, right?
I'm working with embedded software, which is basically we have hardware that requires user interaction, but it has some software built into it. So what we were considering this year, is actually getting like a robot arm that would be testing the, doing the touching and using key cards, access control. But it's still very it's a big investment for a limited output from the robot arm, and it also requires somebody to control and create those tests for that. So at some point, what you said, if we need to deliver fast, it's actually better to do it manually.
Sorry. Yeah, it sounds like if you already have a product and there's a lot of cases, maybe consider the robot arm, because like if you're gonna automate that, it can do the test itself every single day, and any change in the code or anything, the regression tests will be done by the robot arm, and the person has to just like push one button, right, instead of doing the things. But yeah, it's gonna push the button itself, right? Okay. Yeah, so you really have to consider, right?
So I can't agree and disagree together. Because I agree in the fact that our way how we work now will change definitely. And I've heard opinion that developers move from the developers of the code to the code reviewers. And the same, I think, will happen with the testers, that we will move more to the role of the reviewers of the test cases, if it makes sense, if what the AI produced is somehow useful or it's just hallucinating. So, it might save workforce, of course. So if it proves that it's good enough that we could reduce the number of testers we need, then yes, I think it will take a place. And actually it happened, for example, look into the car makers today. If they go to the factory, you will see thousands of robots making the cars, and then there is few humans making it happen. But then there is new kind of companies which will maintain the robots, of course, and the same, I think, happen with the software developers and testers as well. And on your example with the ARM, it will depend, I think, on the costs. If the ARM will be cheaper and save more human work, then yes, I think it will happen that humans will be replaced with that ARM. But if it shows that you are going to spend 1 million crowns for that ARM, and you will need to spend another 1 million crowns in 2 months to new ARM because the one you have is now useless, then you will keep it and doing manually, because I think 2 months are still cheaper than 1 million crowns. Unless you are a super well paid tester.
No. But the thing is that with the robot arm, it can still only cover about 30 to 50% of the work. So that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, it's just another input for the costs, So the ARM will not be saving you like 10 man days. It will just save you 2 man days. So it returns of investment get way larger. So management will not decide to go that way, and you will save your job.
If we're in the save your job environment, I'm kind of more to I'm aligning more towards the fact when AI takes over and it's just going to be the creative stuff, or you basically just get some citizens' income because everything is done by the AI and the computers and the robots. So I'm kind of hoping that that's going to happen in the next 10 years, because I really want to enjoy my retirement.
Well, I don't think that happened. I think there will be just the new jobs. So the jobs we know will be gone because it got obsoleted, and new will come, and we will have to learn the new stuff. So I'm really not afraid of AI taking my job or my income.
Yeah, I think it's always like that. It's just how the market works. If some jobs are gonna be gone, new businesses will come up and they will employ the people. The problem is upskilling because our education moves much slower than the big tech companies that develop new AI. So the problem really could be, it could take some time for the society to actually adapt to it, and for people to be able to live in a world where you really need to understand how AI works, so you could be employable. Yeah, that's just something I wanted to add.
Right. I think that's quite enough for the AI. Sorry, guys. And you, of course, completely forgot about the third and most obvious way, the Tesla way. So don't test it all and let users test it, right? Anyway, we are a bit behind the schedule, but there's the last topic I wanted to cover, and I wanted to use the opportunity that we have Honza here, because I know that they do quite a lot of performance testing at FTMO. So Honza, could you give us a few tips about performance testing, how to do it, how not to do it? Maybe a funny story or something?
Yes, so I will start with the funny story. It's like 1 year ago, our marketing department were just testing some Twitter integration. They did some $100 advert in India. Do you know what happened? Our website was down because of the load. Yeah, you spent $100 in India, and it affected so much people that they were start looking into our ftmo.com website, and it went down. And we originally thought it's a DDoS because we were not used for that high load. After we have started investigating, we have found out that the Indians or India guys were making. Sorry, my pronunciation isn't best in these nations. We have found out that these guys were able to generate traffic of 20 FPS. 20 FPS is quite low traffic, actually. Imagine that Facebook is achieving like tens of thousands FPS all the time, 24 hours a day. So we have realized that we have a really big issue when $100 advert is turning our main website down. And that was the time when my part came in, so I was given the task to find out what's happening. So that's the fun story. If we took from QA point of view, the performance testing is quite complicated area, because you can test whether the API responses in, let's say, less than 200 milliseconds, for example. Or if you have some, or you did some refactoring working with the database, it might be likely it might impact performance. So you want to check that if you are doing the request through that API, it still makes in under than 200 milliseconds. That's the most simple performance, I would say. You are just measuring the time on the response of the system. But when it comes to the website systems or cloud systems, and if you are a global company operating 24 hours daily worldwide, then you will notice that it depends, for example, the time zones. If the America wakes up, you will notice that at some times your website is very slow, and it's because the Americans wake up and open their website. And in these areas, we are not taking much care about making the request in 200 milliseconds on 300 milliseconds. We take care how many users we are able to serve. And this is, I think, the most common case for the QAs in the web systems, because you need to be sure that $100 advert in India do not shut down your systems. I think one biggest issue, and I would like to mention it here today, is that a lot of QAs make a mistake that they are not actually testing their website, they are actually testing their load generator. They do not realize that they need enough power to generate the traffic on the website. And also, they should consider the worldwide traffic routing, because it's a very big difference if you are routed through Singapore or if you are routed through the New York. There are different latencies, and these systems might affect you as well. So you need to consider such things like setup of the routing, and if you have the environment set up for the load testing, you should should make sure it's configured at the same way as the production one, because one significant behavior of the load testing is that the system behaves well on 100 FPS and will crash down on 110 FPS. It's usually not a slow process or a linear process. It works all fine and then it suddenly collapses. So you should make an analysis what the expected load, and my personal experience is to test it at least on the double. Because in FTMO, for example, when we make some estimate with marketing, they tell me, okay, we expect the load will be twice as much as usual. So when the marketing told me this, I'm like, okay, we are going to test 8 times more, because anytime we do advert of the new system, the load exceeds expectation. It never happened to me that it would underestimate it. So it's better to have more than less. And for load testing, another thing to consider is what is the shape of the load? Do you have some steady loads, for example, 10,000 users doing like 2 clicks on average? Or do you have something like our government is experiencing recently when they are releasing a new app? So you know what happened when our government released new app? There is 10 million Czech people who are very creative and try to find out what our government implemented. And of course there are some not clear people or not good people just want to use it as a regular user. They want to not do 2 clicks for a user. They want to make 1 million clicks for a user, because they want to crash down the app as soon as possible to find out if they do properly their load testing. So, and our government cannot plan the release for some, let's say, areas. I don't think it's possible to release app for Prague and then wait 2 days for Moravia region, for example. So it's kind of an issue you need to find out. And for cloud systems, the load testing takes another place, because one specification of cloud is it could scale. And to find out if you configure the scaling properly, again, you need the load testing. And again, you need to take care of the networking. Because, for example, and it's a very great moment today, because FTMO IDP system was implemented primarily by Applifting. And we did the testing of that application together with former colleagues of yours. And we find out that even the routing configuration make a big deal. With a poor configuration, for example, when it was connected directly within the cluster, it worked perfectly. But then we have tried to generate the load from just a different cluster in the same data center. And we find out that the system is not able to manage like 40 FPS. And the IDP system is a very critical part of our infrastructure, so we need to be sure it's able to handle like 1000 FPS. And then we have realized that the routing is the issue, because some, I think, internal ingress was badly configured. So it's fine to make a research before you start preparing your scenarios, and check from where the customers or end users will be accessing the system, whether they are going to the main worldwide routes like Singapore or New York or London, or if it's some local or mobile site, for example, somewhere in Africa. So I think it's a very great topic, and I could spend another 2 hours talking about it.
I bet. Maybe we could do that next time. So guys, would you like to add something to the performance testing?
I will add just a few things, like our colleague from Erste tell me like if the app will survive Czech environment, it will survive in whole Europe. So that's about the Czech nation, how we want to everything break it down. And about the performance, I really like it. Like it's pretty easy to write down some performance test, but the hard part, it's always the analysis of the graphs and think about that. The analysis, this most critical part.
Yeah, and maybe use some hard data for analyzing because during onboarding on one of my projects, there was an onboarding, and in the background it was, creating your account on Firebase and doing a lot of stuff. And it took about 10 seconds, just a loading wheel spinning around. And I came in to the project after the release. And once I first saw it, I didn't care, right? And I was creating a lot of accounts, and I didn't care. I just waited 10 seconds. But then we read the data, and there was like a 50% drop of users during this 10-second period, which was insane. I still don't understand how that works. Like, you download an app, and then it takes 10 seconds, so you decide you don't need it. It's weird, but it's data. So, yeah, we changed that.
Right. So thank you guys for answering the last question, sadly, because we didn't have the time for all of them. Anyway, if you guys have any other questions, there will be a short networking session afterwards, so feel free to ask more. So thanks for being here. Thanks for the entertaining topics and great answers. And once again, Damian from Applifting, Honza from FTMO, Jáchym from Applifting, and Martin from STRV. Thank you guys. You were great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also, thank you for moderation,
Quite all right. Thank you for bearing with my jokes.